So we've been in this new house for a little bit over a week at this point, and let me tell y'all, this Wi-Fi is, oh my gosh, I've been on apartment Wi-Fi for a year. This stuff, it literally instantly uploads the YouTube video. It just goes straight to processing. It's crazy. But anyway, welcome back everybody. My name is Tucker, and today we're gonna be doing a video that I haven't done in a long time, and that is a series preview video. I realize that most of the content that I make is about the offseason, about trades, and about NBA news and stuff, but I thought it'd be cool to kind of talk about the expectations that I have for the upcoming Lakers-Nuggets series for the Western Conference Finals. I would have done it for the Heat-Celtics as well, but that series has already kind of started. So we're going to talk about, how each of these teams match up with each other, how each of these teams could potentially win, and who I think is ultimately going to come out on top in the series. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload basically every single day, and leaving a like rating is a great way to let me know that you're enjoying the content, and it helps out the video a ton as well. With that said, let's go and get started. Okay, so in this series, we have two very different teams, not only in terms of how they're constructed and how they play, but how they got to this point. The Lakers really haven't been tested all that much in the postseason. They've had a couple of off games here and there, but for the most part, it's been smooth sailing in the bubble to get to the Western Conference Finals. Meanwhile, the Denver Nuggets have gone down 3-1 in both of the series that they've played to this point, and specifically in that Clippers series had one of the greatest comebacks that we've ever seen, being down double digits in games 5, 6, and 7 and coming back in each of those games. And I feel like that's a little bit of an advantage for the Lakers simply because when you're going with this back-to-back schedule all the time where you're playing a game every other day, assuming that you're not like the Lakers and you're just running through 5-game series, the Nuggets have played a lot of games. They've had a lot of wear and tear on their body already in the bubble, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially early in the series, for them to come out a little bit sluggish, kind of like they did in game 1 against the Clippers. But on the other hand, for the Nuggets, they know how to come back, and they know, kind of what they're made of. They've really had the opportunity to come together in this bubble scenario, and I don't think the Lakers have really had that. But now let's talk about kind of the players individually in the matchup here, and this is a really interesting contrast of teams, because for the Lakers, it's all about LeBron James. It's all about Anthony Davis. As long as the other guys are making shots and playing good defense, they're going to be fine. Meanwhile, for the Nuggets, they have a similar but different setup. They have two guys in Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic that are playing incredibly well, but the supporting cast is significantly better, especially in the offensive end of the floor, than what the Lakers have to offer. And they have a couple of different players that can have kind of a big breakout game at any moment and really swing the outcome of a particular game. When you're looking at Michael Porter Jr. or Gary Harris or Paul Millsap or Jeremy Grant, when those guys are making shots, the Nuggets are really difficult to guard and defend. And I think that is primarily where the series is going to be decided. And that's how the Lakers are going to defend what became a really good Denver Nuggets offense, not only this regular season, but then in the bubble as well and in the postseason. And of course, it starts with Nikola Jokic. And part of the reason why the Clippers had so many issues defending the Nuggets is because they only had one true big man defender in Zubac, and he had trouble even staying on the floor in the first place. So they ended up not necessarily having to double, but they ended up doubling a lot, whether it was with Montrezl Harrell guarding him or JaMychal Green, whatever. And that just allowed Jokic to completely pick them apart. And realistically, doubling Jokic probably wasn't the smart play. You probably want to try and defend him a little bit more straight up one-on-one, or change up your defenses a little bit more than just playing man and doubling the post every time down, because Jokic was destroying them. But it's a different animal when you're playing against the LA Lakers, and Jokic is going to have to play against not only Anthony Davis, but a handful of nice defensive bigs in the rotation for the Lakers. And worst case, they have better depth at that position than the Clippers did at any point, and that's going to be an advantage for them. Now, to be fair, Anthony Davis continues to say that he doesn't want to be playing the 5, and so JaVale McGee and maybe even Dwight Howard will be getting plenty of chances to guard Jokic, but when it really becomes a problem, especially down the stretch in fourth quarters, Anthony Davis is going to be guarding Nikola Jokic, and that's going to be probably the matchup that decides the series, is which one of those bigs gets the upper hand, which one of them plays better on both ends of the floor, is going to have a huge, thing to do with how this series ends up. Because you know that LeBron is going to show up. You know that at this point, Jamal Murray is going to show up in big games as well. And how much of an advantage the Nuggets can kind of negate in that top two matchup is really going to decide how much of a chance they have in this series. Because again, I think their supporting cast is better, but their top two guys just aren't quite as good as, two of the top 7 best players in the league in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So the more and more the Nuggets can close that gap, the better chance they have. And again, I think it's going to be more difficult for Jokic to be as dominant in this series as he was against the Clippers, because the Lakers do have that front court depth and they have good defensive players inside. But still, I mean, he's been incredible. So as long as he continues to play to the standard that he's set to this point and Jamal Murray continues to make shots, I think that 1-2 matchup is going to be a little bit closer than you would normally anticipate. And then it's just going to come down to the other guys. Who's going to make shots? Who's going to defend? You know that they're going to be solid defensively on both sides. The Nuggets have been much better defensively than I would have expected them to be, and they're going to be on top of these top two guys, and everybody else on the floor is going to need to make shots. And I believe a little bit more in the ability of the Nuggets shooters in terms of just how good of shooters they are off the ball. But for the Lakers, they have some more playoff tested guys, some more championship proven guys that, you know, guys like Rondo, guys like Danny Green, that I probably trust a little bit more in the postseason and in big moments. And at the end of the day, from like an overall picture, this is a series that if you told me this was going to be the Western Conference Finals at the beginning of the playoffs, I would have chosen the Lakers 100 out of 100 times. I just think that they're a better team. I think they're much better defensively, and the Nuggets are a better offensive team at times than the Lakers. But when it comes down to playoff basketball and you really need your best players to play well, and a lot of it just comes down to individual shot making and playmaking, I trust Anthony Davis and LeBron James more in that situation than I do Jokic and Jamal Murray. But the perception and the perspective that I have on this Nuggets team has certainly changed over these last two series that they've played. They've shown a toughness, they've shown an ability to defend, they've shown that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are incredible playoff players, at least to this point. And the growth of Murray specifically really changes a lot for this group, because we all knew that Jokic was an all-NBA caliber player. But Jamal Murray is one of the best young guards in the league now all of a sudden, and that is a really, really interesting dynamic to pay attention to. So now let's talk about how each team can win the series. For the Lakers, it's all about dominating with what they've done all year long, and that's been a great defensive team, really pummeling teams in the paint, getting timely shot making off the ball, but not relying as much on the three-point shot as other teams, and then allowing LeBron James to kind of bring it home at the end of games and creating for himself and for others in the fourth quarter. That's been their formula all year long, and I think that's exactly what they need to do in this series as well. They have the defensive ability to keep this kind of within the game that they want to play, which is a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, allowing LeBron to kind of find those little edges in the half court, allowing Anthony Davis to be a dominant offensive player, and really exploiting that Jokic-Davis matchup as much as they possibly can is going to be kind of, you know, their path to victory. Now, the Nuggets can do some different things to try and negate that matchup. They can put Paul Millsap or Jeremy Grant on Davis at times and see if that works, but just the sheer, you know, size to size matchup, whenever Anthony Davis is on the floor as the 5, Jokic is probably going to be the matchup rather than playing, you know, someone like Kuzma or whoever's playing the 4. So exploiting that matchup and just doing what they do is going to be the Lakers' best chance. And for the Nuggets, they have to have other guys make shots. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, I'm confident at this point, even with an improved defensive team, one of the best defensive teams in the league in the Lakers, I'm still confident that those two guys are going to produce and they're going to be able to create for others. But Gary Harris, Michael Porter Jr. when he plays, Paul Millsap, Jeremy Grant, Monty Morris, those guys have got to make shots off the basketball, and if they don't, it's going to be a really tough and long series. The Lakers have that margin of error where if their other guys aren't really making shots off the ball, they can still do enough defensively and with their top two guys to win the series. I don't think the Nuggets have that luxury. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a really close series. It's going to be a way more entertaining series than I would have anticipated before the bubble. I'm going to go Lakers in 6 here simply because I trust LeBron and Anthony Davis more in the postseason. I don't take anything away from Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic and what the Denver Nuggets have done to this point in the postseason. It's been incredibly impressive. It's just a trust thing. It's a postseason thing. I've seen it time and time again at a championship level from LeBron James, and I'm not going to bet against him in a series in which he's going against like a 24-year-old Nikola Jokic and a 22-year-old Jamal Murray. Those guys have been awesome, and it's nothing against them whatsoever. They absolutely have a chance in this series if they get shot making from other guys. I just think that the Lakers have a little bit more margin for error, and they're going to be a little bit better rested as well. And I think ultimately they're going to be the team representing the Western Conference in the NBA Finals. And yeah, there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.